From around the globe, they've gathered, the greatest gymnasts in the world, to compete not as individuals, but as teams, countries, in the ultimate challenge of power and grace. The tiny champion from China pursues the same honor as the powerful Romanian. For the Ukrainian, it's a matter of national pride. That same flame burns in the Russian heart. Little girls as tough as steel, chasing gold. Dreams really have no geographical bounds. Today, the Americans join the chase for a team world championship. But these young athletes face a hurdle almost as big as the competition itself. Their leader, reigning world champion Shannon Miller, has left the team. Less than 48 hours ago, while her teammates battled for a spot in today's championship, Shannon and her coach were walking through customs already back on American soil.
I personally would still be here, so would my athlete. I think it's what the United States expects of all their coaches and athletes.
So today, more than ever, the U.S. girls are faced with a true challenge of these championships. Persevere and pursue as a team the world title. Westfalenhallen in Dortmund, Germany, where 37 teams from around the globe have gathered for the 1994 World Team Gymnastics Championships. The United States has never won a World Team Gymnastics title, and now it's up to these 6 U.S. girls to try and overcome what could be insurmountable odds today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Hicks. The United States is competing without its two-time defending world champion, Shannon Miller. After making an appearance in the compulsory portion of this competition, she and her coach, Steve Nuno, boarded a plane immediately, headed back to the United States, electing not to compete in the optional or the finals portion of this competition. Let's welcome our expert commentators, Tim Daggett and Elfie Schlegel. There's been a lot of speculation as to why Steve and Shannon left the team, so let's first pose that question to you, Tim.
Well, first of all, Dan, Steve has been saying from the beginning that Shannon's tired, she's beat up, she needs a rest from competition. They said they were going to come to Dortmund and compete only in the compulsory rounds. I think what people are so upset about is the way they decided to leave. It's really important to note, however, that this is not Shannon Miller. Steve Nuno, he's the boss, he makes the call. And what I think is actually going on here is he's protecting the reputation of a world champion. You have to remember that gymnastics, it's a subjective sport. It's scored, it's not timed by a clock, and reputation means a lot. He's not going to let her walk out on the floor and damage that reputation if she's not at her absolute best. Didn't say it's right for the USA, but I think that's what's going on.
So, Elfie, what impact or effect will this have on the United States team?
No question, Dan, this is going to hurt this team big time. Anytime your two-time world champion can't perform, you're missing out on some pretty big scores. Now, what makes this team championship so unique is that you can use that specialist, and I'm sure the U.S. was hoping to have Shannon here today just in case things got sticky, but obviously she's not. They don't even have that option to throw her in one, perhaps two routines. But more importantly, we have to remember the U.S. team was led to believe that she would still be here.
So with no Shannon Miller and no Steve Nuno, the spotlight even more on Coach Kelly Hill, the coach of the reigning 1994 U.S. national champion Dominique Dawes. Her experience will be counted on even more today, and also the United States will have to get some good performances from a very inexperienced group, including 16-year-old Amy Chow in her first year on the national team.
And Dan, talk about a pressure situation. Not only is she first up for the U.S. team, she sets the stage for the entire team on this first apparatus. She's never competed at a World Championships before.
Just a little problem there, a little bit of a struggle. Here's her first release right here. Oh, slight legs apart, but not too bad.
What's refreshing about Amy's routine is she's brought back a lot of the old elements from the late 70s, early 80s, and she tops it up with a pretty amazing dismount. Great routine.
her.
An approving hug from her coach, Mark Young. 16-year-old Amy Chow from San Jose, California.
Well, did Amy ever live up to expectations? This was a huge routine, and as I said before, her favorite apparatus, and this dismount, she says, is simply a lot of fun.
A lot going on there. Double twisting, double somersault, one piece of air. Amazing.
And the score for Amy Chow, not a particularly high score, 9.375, but one of the scores can be thrown out. There are 7 women on a team, 6 compete on each apparatus, 5 scores will be counted. And in the first rotation, they are competing on 4 apparatuses. 2 of the 6 teams have a bye in each of the rotations. Romania and China sitting this one out. Now over to the vault, we look at Ukraine's 16-year-old Lilia Podkapayeva.
And you know, Dan, on this Ukrainian team, Lilia is by far the bright spot. She has emerged as one of the top international competitors. This is a tough vault in that the landing is totally blind. Perfect form, but right there. She doesn't see a thing until she hits that floor, and of course that forced her to take a huge step.
Each gymnast will perform 2 vaults. There's the first vault score, 9.75. They'll take the better of the 2.
Just improve on the landing, that's all she's thinking. No, and it's definitely no better.
No question, she'll be taking that first vault score. Again, what she does so beautifully is she has perfect form. Right up until this point, a little extra over rotation.
And the score for Lilia, 9.737. She will take the first score. And when we come back, the continued gymnastics comeback of Carrie Strug.
BC's Sports World, and today it's brought to you.
In just a moment, we'll get our first look at Carrie Strug in these World Team Gymnastics Championships. But right now on the floor, 15-year-old Svetlana Horkina from Russia. The Russians expecting to challenge for a medal in these finals.
And this floor routine is not just about tumbling, but it's a lot about grace.
Svetlana Horkina from Russia.
You know, Dan, this type of style really stands on its own, and it's actually quite reminiscent of a very famous Olympian, Svetlana Boginskaya. Very classy, very elegant. She puts a lot into the choreography, as well as some pretty interesting tumbling passes.
This one right here, this is amazing. Front layout full, right into a laid out front somersault, but she steps out of it. Really neat. She's not as powerful naturally as some of the other athletes on the floor, but in this exercise, she really had no major errors at all, and this is so beautiful. Triple full, and she just rocks the landing right there.
And there is the score for the sinewy Horkina, 9.825. Next up for the Americans, Carrie Strug, and the fact that she is even competing here today is simply remarkable.
A lot of people just decided that, you know, I was out of the picture. So I feel like I have something to prove, to show that I can still come back and do well, even with all the changes I've gone through.
Kerri Strug has been through much more than most elite gymnasts. Kerri Strug, smiling again, seems to have put it all in perspective.
And you know, Dan, with all the competitions preceding this final, I can pretty much say that she has mentally and physically, she is still very much in the game.
Uneven bars, it's all about letting go, flying high, and catching the bar again. First release right there.
Second release skill, she is looking incredibly strong. I'd say she's pretty much picked up where she left off in world competition. Of course, one of the seasoned veterans on this team and an outstanding dismount.
Great landing.
17-year-old Kerri Strug turns 17 the day before this finals day of competition.
As I said, she's just picked up where she left off. This was an incredibly strong routine filled with 2 release skills, and the dismount was by far one of the highlights. Look how much height she gets on that full twisting double back, and she knows exactly where she is.
So important. You gotta stick the landing. The last thing the judge sees is what puts an exclamation point on that routine right there.
And the score for Kerri Strug, a 9.675.
Every holiday season.
So the U.S. team seems to be rising to the occasion without Shannon Miller, and now it is 17-year-old Amanda Borden's turn.
And Dan, you're right, this team has not been rattled at all by the fact that Shannon Miller hasn't been here competing today, and I'm sure, Tim, you'd agree that this has been the year of Amanda Borden. She is far more confident in her gymnastics than I've ever seen.
No doubt.
2 big release moves that she's planning in this routine, the first one coming up right here.
She really gets a little bit of air on this release right here. She'll do a full giant right into a reverse heck. And look at the height. We talked about it on vaulting. When you have a blind landing, it's very difficult. Right there. Yeah. Handles it, though. Just a small little hop. That's a great exercise for Amanda Borden.
Beautiful. You couldn't ask for better.
17 years old from Cincinnati.
Take your time.
She really put it all together. You heard Coach Kelly Hill say, beautiful, you put it all together. Great release skills. She really had a great package and performed very beautifully. Here's her Jaeger release skill, very high, bang on. She moves down to the low bar, but the one move that has given Amanda a few problems in the past, it was that blind landing on the dismount, the double front. Your timing has to be, oh, so perfect. Here's the half giant skill. Right into that double front, well above the high bar, and you can see just a tad bit of over-rotation.
Amanda Borden competed at the 94 Individual World Championship. She was 8th on the bars there, and there is her score on the uneven bars. And now, Yelena Fiskoun, our first look at this 16-year-old from Belarus.
And she is extremely exciting. This is a dynamite routine, and as I mentioned, Lilia Pokapayeva from the Ukraine being the bright spot of that team, so is Yelena Fiskoun on this team. She has so much difficulty.
First major tumbling element on the beam. Right on.
There's one skill coming up where she'll perform a full twisting element on the balance beam. It's one of the most difficult moves you can do in women's gymnastics on this little tiny 4-inch balance beam, and here it goes.
Oh, boy.
That's really a shame. She nailed it the other day in the preliminaries. That's a real shame.
It's the whole thing about gymnastics. You always have to push the envelope. You always have to try to do something a little bit more difficult, risky, and sometimes that's the result.
And how tough is it to begin the competition on the beam?
Well, it's very, very difficult, and you have to remember, she knows, too, whenever you fall off the apparatus, it's an automatic 5/10 deduction. It certainly takes herself out of any contention of doing well individually. This is a team championships, but certainly she's the leader of this team. She'll have to get back on track here. Dismount double pike somersault, and she just nailed